Once again, it's a fantastic entry for the Supernationals, and again, it was Ash Simpson leading the pack. Todd Crooks was out in his BMW Mini and was investigating the strength of the barriers. But victory in Heat 1 went the way of Ash Simpson. So many cars in Supernationals mean we have 2 races per heat today, and in the second race, Gary Simpson ploughed into the side of Gary Crook, who in turn hit David Ewin. Then things got worse for the Fiesta driver, who ended up in a gravel down at the chicane. But up front, it was Stuart Emery taking the flag, and he managed to repeat his success in Heat 2 as well. In the second of the Heat 2 races, Simpson had some stiff opposition in the form of Paul Wakeling, but Ash flexed the muscles of the Lotus and managed to get past and take the Heat win. Stephen Rattu's bumper was left trailing after more shenanigans. Heat 3 saw Todd Crooks this time investigating the grass at Mallory Park as he tried a brave move to get ahead. And it seemed to work as he led the way. Well, that is until Ewin got a bit over-enthusiastic and pushed him wide. With these two battling, Ash spotted a gap and went for it and took another win. Another victim of the chicane was Vince Bristow. Pushed wide, he only just missed the barriers. But the second time round, he went right around. And up front, it was Paul Wakeling winning his race, securing his place on the A final grid. So with such a large entry, we have a B final. The winner of the B final will get onto the back of the A final with the other cars who've already qualified. Stephen Rattu and Vince Bristow looking both very, very relaxed. Gareth Softly having a little smile, and he's ready to go as well. The weather favouring us here at Mallory Park. A little bit further back, the McGann of Barry Dutton and the Fiesta of David Ewin. He's had some dramas already today. Not a good start for Rattu. He seems to bogged down a little bit there. There's a problem with the car, but look at that from the back of the grid. David Ewin is in the lead already. Fabulous start by him. And can he get his head down and get away? That will be all important. This win's super important because, as I said, it gets you on the back of the A final. Vince Bristow, though, is straight back on him, though. Really, really quick through the chicane on the opening lap. Both of these little cars looking really, really like they're being pushed to the absolute limit of what they can do. Ewin turns into the chicane for the first time. Nice and neat and tidy. A little bit of oversteer, a bit of understeer, and then a very quick reaction from Bristow to get himself around the outside of the tyre bale. Still manages to keep himself in second place. Watch this, watch how quickly he goes from understeer to a bit of steering around the outside and then a bit of oversteer. It was like one lesson in car control in one fell swoop from Vince Bristow. But he's back at it. He's right on the tail of David Ewin. It's going to be a fight all the way to the end of this race. And it is just, I think, going to be David Ewin who wins and with it gets onto the back of the A final. What a tremendous race from Bristow, though, to recover. So, heading off to the A final, with David Ewin joining the rest of the drivers on the back of the pack. Malcolm Boyd is missing from both the B and the A final, which is going to hurt his championship situation. His third coming into it. It's Ash Simpson, though, looking confident on pole position ahead of Paul Wakeling. We know just how quick that MG can be at times, and likewise Stuart Emery, a very, very skillful driver in his Peugeot. It's going to be a very interesting fight. Some very different cars, as we always see in Supernationals. So we got the Lotus, the MG and the Peugeot on the front row. Who's going to get the best of the starts? Can Ewin do what he did in the B final and get around to the front? Not quite this time. Ash Simpson's got it done. Emery goes with him. And Paul Wakeling still in the mix very much from the off, trying to get across to the right-hand side and outbrake Emery into the first of the chicanes, but Emery outbrakes himself, I think, a little bit. In the background, that's getting very frantic between Ewin and between Gary Crook, and also bouncing through the gravel. Gary Crook looking and trying to see through the screen. I think it's time to call those glass people up and get those stone chips repaired. I think it's more than a stone chip this time. No problem for Stuart Emery. He's off and spinning. I'm not quite sure what caused that. That's at the end of the back straight. Now, here is Stuart Emery. Now, the back of the car moving around so much now. Is there a some breakage or a puncture maybe, or was it just that he got caught out by the bumps? Then he bounces into the barrier, and I think that perhaps does break the rear suspension if it hadn't already had a problem before that. Meanwhile, Simpson just edging away. Ash Simpson doing what he's done so many times before. Gary Cook putting big pressure on the Fiesta of David Ewin, and Todd Cook just behind that. Todd Cook looking very racing, his first time amongst these guys. Gary Cook around the outside. And there around goes Paul Wakeling now. What's happened to Wakeling? Just sitting there and waiting for the rest of the pack to go through. Running on board once again with Gary Cook through the long sweeping right hand, and now Paul Wakeling, whatever. And where's Simon Horton come from? Now, did Horton get involved in that, or was that something separate? Didn't quite see the beginning of that. Meanwhile, Ash Simpson is driving away from Gary Cook, the reigning BTR DAE champion in his class last year. Now, red flag. That's because obviously Wakeling and Emery's cars are in dangerous positions now. Look at this. This is Paul. Oh my goodness me! Look how high Paul Wakeling's car has bounced there over those bumps, and I think that must have caused some severe damage. That's obviously what Paul was looking at when he clambered out of the MG. So alone at the front, it's Ash Simpson. Immediately looks in his mirror, as any good racing driver will, to see where everybody else is. And the answer is already they're trailing in his wake. Gary Cook, David Ewin and Simon Horton really leaning on each other. Going through that first right-hander. Ash Simpson though. And in the background, Horton goes round. Now contact somewhere in the middle of that scrap. He's put Simon Horton round. Gary Cook, David Ewin and Todd Crook though continue on their way. And I wonder if the drivers are going to start to take a slightly different line at the end of the back straight to maybe try and minimise the effects of those very severe bumps that have caught out Paul Wakeling and Stuart Emery, or certainly caused some sort of a fairly major drama for both of those drivers. Ewin, is that the same spot they went off before? Oh, he's clambering out. He's okay. That's the most important thing. Let's see if we can work out what's happened. No, it is at the same spot where he had a drama in the heats. He gets a load of understeer. It's almost like there's something broken or maybe a puncture. He just does not want to turn into the last bit of the chicane. Ash Simpson is looking very good to continue where he left off in 2012. He only lost once in the season. That was in the opening round of 2012 to Ian O'Connell. And this year he was beaten by Malcolm Boyd. He's not going to be beaten today. He takes his third win of the season. It's going to be a great result for Gary Cooks, who peers through the very damaged windscreen, and that's how pleased he is with that result. And he brings the MG ZR home in second place. A great result also for Todd Crook in his Mini. So all of this means that Ash Simpson wins it by 6.05 seconds from Gary Cook, Todd Crooks, and then Simon Horton and David Ewin not finishing.